as well as other leaders. There are about 6 positions, and one of them is electing the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya, your Governor, Senator, Woman Representative, MP, as well as the member of a county assembly. And our conversation is continuing. In studio, we still have Gibson, political analyst, as well as Joy Omodivo, a political analyst, and of course my colleagues Victor Olo and Jen Wamboy. But before we throw it back to Victor Olo, it's quite interesting. But let me also say from the onset, again, we have Nancy Okware and Richard Munga on standby from Kasarani Stadium. That is where the Azimio final call will be at. And we have Beatrice Gatonye and Irene Muchuma standing by at the Nyayo Stadium for the Kenya Kwanza final call to its supporters. I want us to talk about stakeholders in this election and how they have aided the process of IEBC delivering a credible election. And let's talk about the judiciary, because you're also a player in the corridors of justice. When it comes to, for example, the case that we were citing today about the manual register versus the electronic register being delivered 4 days to the general election, I think you had 2017 where the judiciary issued injunctions against the IEBC actually hours to the election. I think it was Judge Odunga. Do you think the judiciary has acted differently this time in terms of aiding the election process as compared to 2017?
Jacob, I think the IBC, the courts themselves, you know, they don't have a clock to be working on. It's about the case which is presented before them and the facts presented upon them. And then, of course, they have been working expeditiously to... You've seen some cases take too much time in court, but for these election-related cases, they have been acting around the clock to just ensure that they... Because you cannot now, if something critical like a register, you cannot be able to postpone it to after election. You have to do it now, so that the anomaly is amended, especially where there is likely to be a situation. Because if you are presented with the facts and you are a judge and you realize, if I don't make this decision now, we are likely to have a problem. Because from the facts presented, because IBC also participates in court, so they are also given an opportunity to actually answer the question. When you realize that there is actually going to be a problem as a judge, then it's incumbent upon you to actually make a decision to avert such crisis. So you cannot be able to fault the courts or say that they have not, as a stakeholder, they have not been acting. It's because it depends on what time did the case come. Yes, so the only thing is for them to expedite. But if there is no reason for urgency, then they give it time to be had way back later. But as you have asked, the courts have been a very important stakeholder, especially in bringing transparency, in making decisions to ensure that there is free, fair election come the 9th.
Of course, we have had at some point Wafula Chebukati warning that 13 areas, I think 18 of them affected by election disputes. There's a risk of not conducting elections there, but I think that's a matter that has already been dealt with by the judiciary. But you have an active matter right now of people who have gone to court challenging the legitimacy of, or rather the integrity of, for example, the Kenya Kwanza deputy presidential candidate, and others. Will the court within these 2 days be able to deliver a ruling? Because what if the ruling is fatal later, once probably these guys have been elected to office?
Now, of course, it also depends on, you see, election is a process. It doesn't just start today. These candidates have been vetted through various stages. Now, if you come to court too late in the day, while these people have been cleared all the way to the very end, I don't think there is a possibility of these guys getting a judgment in their favor at this moment. That can, of course, be decided after, but to be an after effect. Yes.
2 questions that arises from that. That can be an after effect, but there's no guarantee then that it cannot indeed uphold or rather give the prayer sought for by the petitioners, that indeed these guys are not credible, or rather do not have the threshold of integrity to vie for these offices. And what would that mean then if that determination would be made after the election?
Nothing stops the court from giving whatever prayers they deem fit to be given. That is for starters. But however, the courts are also operating in this country. They know the critical juncture we are in, they know very well what the situation is. So sometimes the judge who is given the case will have to look at the facts and see, if I make this decision, what after effects will it have? Is it possible that I'm going to cause a crisis? Because you also cannot be giving crises at the last moment. So there is that on the weighing scale, you will have to decide that maybe it deserves, but I will stagger it to after. Maybe give a date to be had on these issues to be had after the election, so that you don't antagonize the election, because the election is a very important and emotive thing in this country. So the courts are also very much well aware of this situation. So I don't expect them to actually make a decision which is going to the nerve center of how this election is going to be conducted. But for small things or critical things which can be put in place, nothing stops them from actually making that decision.
Okay. So then we bring in Victor. Joy, in 2017, you have the Court of Appeal, some of the Court of Appeal judges having to sit throughout the night to overturn a decision by a Judge Odunga that had actually declared as unprocedural the recruitment of returning officers. You have the benefit of looking at 2017 and now 2022. How do you think the judiciary has fared in terms of helping the IEBC to deliver a credible election?
I think the judiciary has done pretty well, because the thing with election petitions or election disputes, all of them are time-bound. Unlike other cases where they have the luxury of listening to cases for as long as they need to, they can take their time. When it comes to election petitions or election disputes, there is a time component. And this time component is very strict. In most cases, there's no luxury of, we'll give you a judgment next week. You find that the judgments have to be written overnight and delivered the next morning. And so I think the judiciary has really tried, because if you look at the nomination process, the political parties generated a lot of disputes. They had their own, I think it was about 6-7 days to do their own disputes. Then it went to the IBC Dispute Tribunal. Then the IBC Dispute Tribunal, where they were not happy, people went to the High Court. So it's been quite a process. But for you to hear a matter to appeal and appeal to the High Court within the last 3 months, I think they've done really, really well. The decision by Chief Justice Martha Koome to expand the PPDT, the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal, and to decentralize it from Nairobi was a stroke of genius, because what it did is that now, rather than everybody having to scramble to Nairobi to have their cases heard and determined, they were able to have tribunals of equal standing sitting across the country and hearing the disputes. So in terms of rating the judiciary, how they've performed this time, I think they've done exemplary well. And I even foresee in future, because one of the things that we have done over the last 2 election cycles is refine the electoral dispute jurisprudence. So coming this dispute, it will be very clear. For you to prove your dispute, this is what you need to show us. Don't come and tell us all the returning officers were his cousins, the polling clerks were all his children. No, you come and tell us what was the problem, where was the dispute, what were the numbers involved, how did it affect the final outcome. If you can't prove those, then even the initial threshold of being able to file and proceed will not happen. So even in terms of the numbers of cases that we will see, they'll be lesser, and the speed with which they'll be dispensed with, I think, will be satisfactory.
Fantastic. And of course, when you come back, we'll talk about the timelines that you talk about. But right about now, Victor, I understand you have the map to Kasarani.
Oh, yes. It's a busy day here in the capital city. And we have got Munga. We have got our reporters already there in Kasarani and Nyayo National Stadium. But first of all, let's cross over to Kasarani and get the sights and sounds of what you should expect from there. Munga, if you can hear me, please just take us through the 1 and 2s of what you should expect from the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani.
Well, thank you very much, John Jacob Curie, of course, and Victor Olo from the studio. Once again, my name is Richard Munga, live from the Kasarani Stadium. And as we all remember where it all started, from the Azimio La Umoja initiative to the Azimio La Umoja movement, which was launched right here at the Kasarani Stadium late last year. And all that has culminated into the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party. And all that has culminated into this, as you can see behind me. Despite the weather being a bit gloomy, of course, that has not stopped hundreds of supporters from flocking the Kasarani Stadium, and actually more outside waiting to gain access to the stadium. And of course, leaders also are flocking in, with the most notable at this point being George Wajackoyah, Professor George Wajackoyah. Of course, not so long ago, a few days ago, of course, he proclaimed that he will be supporting Raila Odinga for the presidency come August 9th, which is actually 2 days away. That is on Tuesday. And a couple of other leaders are expected, of course, besides Raila Odinga, the presidential candidate for Azimio La Umoja, One Kenya coalition party. You also have his running mate, Martha Karua, who is the Now Kenya party leader. You have Mombasa Governor Hassan Ali Joho. Also, you have the likes of Sifuna, who is, of course, Nairobi. Candidates. We'll be having a lot of leaders coming in today, so we will be keeping you up to date as we keep tabs on Raila Odinga and Martha Karua as they continue selling their agenda to Kenyans. We all remember, of course, about the 10-point manifesto from Raila Odinga. He will be talking more about that. He is expected to come in a couple of minutes. Really, they said 30 minutes, but we shall keep you updated in regards to that. To the other side of town, to Nyayo National.
Asante sana mtazamaji, hujambo? Inaja kwako moja kwa moja kutoka uwanja wa kitaifa wa Nyayo hapa jijini Nairobi.
Hakuna mtu atatoka bila kwa finali yangu.
Wa kampeni katika
ini yako, congratulations. Na wewe pia unaangukia. Hao ni warembo na hustler. Asanteni sana. Wangependa
kwa sasa tumbuizo wanaendelea kutumbuizwa kwa nyimbo huku wengi wakijishughulisha tu na shughuli za shamra za kusikiliza kiongozi wao ambaye bila shaka wanaunga mkono azma zake za kuliongoza taifa hili na kumrithi Rais Uhuru Kenyatta baada ya hatima yake ya kuliongoza taifa hili ya miaka 10 kutamatika kulingana na katiba baada ya uchaguzi mkuu wa tarehe 9. Hivi leo mtazamaji, ndiyo siku ya mwisho kabisa kwa viongozi na wagombeaji viti mbalimbali kufanya kampeni zao. Na muungano wa Kenya Kwanza, mtazamaji, utaweza kufanya hivyo hapa katika uwanja huu wa Nyayo, ambapo kiongozi wa muungano huo, Naibu Rais William Ruto, atakuwa akiwarai wa Kenya na kuweza kuuza sera zake kwa mara ya mwisho kwa Wakenya hadharani. Na Wakenya watakuwa na siku ya kesho na kesho kutwa kutafakari, na kisha siku ya tarehe 9 kuamka asubuhi na mapema kuweza kuwachagua viongozi ambao wanawapenda. Mtazamaji, kama tunavyo, Naibu Rais ambaye ni kiongozi wa muungano wa Kenya Kwanza amekuwa akifanya msururu wa mikutano na kampeni ya kuweza kufanya shughuli hiyo hapa katika uwanja wa Nyayo. Mtazamaji, siko peke yangu, niko na mwenzangu Irene Mchuma ambaye bila shaka tutakuwa tukifuatilia matukio ya siku ya leo katika uwanja huu na ujumbe wa Naibu Rais William Ruto ambaye ni kiongozi wa muungano wa Kenya Kwanza. Kile ambacho atakuwa akisema tutakuwa tukifuatilia kwa kina. Irene Mchuma, Naibu Rais atawasili hapa hivi leo. Tutarajie nini katika hotuba yake ya mwisho hadharani akiwaomba wa Kenya kuunga mkono azma yake? What should we expect from his speech today?
Well, Gatonye, thank you, Gatonye. And this afternoon is expecting His Excellency the Deputy President, the leader of the Kenya Kwanza, to make his way here. He should be addressing issues that will make voters vote for him come Tuesday. We'll be looking at his manifesto, the issues he has been pushing around the country. He said he has gone through the 47 counties, and in these 47 counties he's been able to meet business leaders, the youth, Wamamboga, as he best put it, when it comes to the people with low income in the society. And he says that these people need improved livelihoods, and he also said that they need employment. In his manifesto, he says he has put aside 500 billion shillings that will cater for employment of the youth and the vulnerable in the next 5 years. and he says he will lower the cost of living, and this he will do through agriculture, where his government intends to put aside 250 billion shillings in addressing the issue of agriculture, whereby he will lower the price of fertilizer and ensure that farmers have the equipment that will enable them to acquire food at lower price, and also get seedlings products at lower price. But there's also an issue of general development in the country. The Deputy President has been at the fore saying that if Kenya Kwanza gets to power, he is best placed to ensure that the country grows in terms of economy and ensure that each and every Kenyan is best pleased, and parents will not have to cater for fee for their children back in school. And we would say this is a concept that started with the late President Mwai Kibaki. When he came to power, he ensured that we have the free primary education, and every leader coming into power or who wants to be elected in the country will definitely sell the agenda of ensuring that each and every child is in school and at a comfortable environment. There's also the issue of infrastructure. City residents have been complaining of poor infrastructure, especially in the central business district. Yesterday, we saw the Nairobi gubernatorial candidate under the UDA ticket, Senator Johnson Sakaja, urging Kenyans not only in the county of Nairobi, but also neighboring counties of Kiambu, Machakos, and Kajiado to make their way here to the Nyayo National Stadium to listen to them as they make their final call ahead of the Tuesday polls, and also convince them on why they should wake up early morning and go and vote for them in the August general election. But there is this issue of city residents facing poor garbage collection. This is one of the issues that the Nairobi gubernatorial candidate under the UDA ticket said he will address, and Nairobi carries the highest number of voters in the country. Thus, there is reason for him to urge the city residents to turn up in large numbers. And Gatonye, there is also the issue of how are we going to address the housing concern in the country. Remember, there are those areas that are overpopulated, and Kenyans, especially the traders in Eastlands areas, they're struggling to have shelter for their families. Sijui maoni yako ni yapi hasa wakati huu tunatarajia kiongozi wa Kenya Kwanza kuja hapa?
Asante sana Irene. Naibu Rais amekuwa hadharani akisema kwamba ataboresha makaazi na hasa katika maeneo ya miji, kwa sababu katika maeneo ya miji kuna changamoto nyingi sana kwa sababu ya masuala ya nyumba ambazo si nzuri sana na hazifai na mazingira yake hayafai. Amekuwa akisema kwamba ataboresha makaazi hasa katika maeneo ya mijini, na vile vile pia masuala ya mashamba, na hasa amekuwa akigusia swala la maskota kule eneo la Pwani, akisema kwamba atahakikisha kwamba maskota wanaweza kupata hati miliki za ardhi ili waweze kuboresha maisha yao na waweze kuendeleza maisha yao. Kando na hayo, Irene, hivi majuzi hii wiki tu Naibu Rais amekuwa hadharani akisema kwamba serikali inawashinikiza maafisa wa utawala kuunga mkono azma ya muungano wa Azimio One Kenya, na amekuwa hadharani akisema kwamba maafisa wa utawala wanatumika kuchukua zile identity cards na kuweza kuzificha ama kuziweka ili maeneo yake ambayo yana wafuasi wengi kusiwe na wapiga kura wengi. Hilo ni tatizo ambalo amekuwa akilitaja hadharani. Lakini hiyo jana Waziri wa usalama wa kitaifa Dr. Fred Matiang'i alisema kwamba madai ya naibu rais sio ya kweli, na kwamba serikali inafanya kile iwezalo kuhakikisha kwamba inaunga mkono IEBC kuhakikisha kwamba itaweza kufanya uchaguzi wa amani. Mtazamaji, hivi leo tutakuwa kama jinsi ambavyo Irene amesema, tutafuatilia kwa kina kusikia ni yapi ambayo naibu rais ambaye ni kiongozi wa muungano wa Kenya Kwanza atakuwa akiyasema hapa katika uwanja huu wa kitaifa wa Nyayo, wakati ambapo atakuwa kwenye hadhara yake ya mwisho kabisa ama mkutano wake wa mwisho wa kampeni za uchaguzi wa tarehe 9 mwezi Agosti. Kwa sasa mtazamaji, naashiriwa kwamba wenzetu katika kaunti ya Kirinyaga wako ange kabisa kukuletea yanayojiri katika eneo hilo. Kwa sasa tuvuke hadi Kirinyaga County.
Thank you very much, Beatrice Gatonye and Irene Muchuma, coming to us live from the Nyayo Stadium. Where I am, our dear viewers, I am at Kirinyaga County, where the Mother Karua has just held her final campaign rally in the region ahead of the Kasarani congregation, where the party is set to meet its followers and delegates in that particular conference. In the last minute efforts to rally members of the public behind the Azimio la Umoja. Interestingly, this is Kirinyaga County, one of the key counties when you speak about the Mount Kenya region, and so to speak is the aspect of the county having produced a running mate for the presidential contest. Mother Karua, in her final rally at Kiruguya, spoke to residents in Kirinyaga County, urging them to support Azimio la Umoja. This will be replicated in the 4 constituencies, that is Ndia, Mwea, Kirinyaga Central, and also Gishugu, where we are set to witness the final attempts by the political class to get to rally members of the public to support the agenda and indeed vote them in the 2 days to come, that is on 2nd. One of the things that has been going on with Azimio la Umoja is the aspect of zoning, and from today's rally in Kirinyaga County that was held at Kirugoya constituency, Mother Karua spoke about what Azimio la Umoja has agreed upon up to now, and through various consultations, the county of Kirinyaga, Embu, as well as Laikipia have managed to rally behind one candidate. And so in Kirinyaga County, the NAK Kenya party, as well as the Jubilee candidate, as well as the Jubilee party rather, will be supporting Senator Charles Kibiru, who is currently serving as an independent candidate and is making a stab at the gubernatorial position. In Laikipia County, the designated governor for the Azimio la Umoja coalition will be Ndericho Mureithi, also the current serving governor. And interestingly, our viewers, is that Kirinyaga County is one of the counties where the very first governor is also seeking to get to recapture that particular county top seat, as well as the very first senator for the county. So we'll be moving across this vast particular county to get to see how the campaigns are being carried out on the final day and the reception from the members of the public. Back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Gladys Mungai. In Kirinyaga County, that is Kirinyaga Central Constituency, where Mother Karua, the Azimio running mate, has just concluded her final rally in the region, and now I believe headed to Kasarani, where the final call for Azimio is happening. Quite an interesting town in Kirinyaga, because there was a gubernatorial candidate for NAK Kenya, and right now stepping down in favor of Charles Kibiru, the Jubilee Party candidate. Then it appears like the match zoning we were told about by Azimio earlier is finally happening at the home stretch of this particular campaign, and that's just a new development as brought to us by Gladys Mungai. Kevin Washira is in Nyeri County, so is Timothy Kipnusu in the county of Uasin Gishu, and these are very strategic areas. Why is Kirinyaga strategic? That's where the Azimio running mate comes from. Nyeri is very strategic because of Rigathi Gachagua, the Kenya Kwanza running mate, and also Uasin Gishu, where the Kenya Kwanza presidential candidate comes from, and Simon Achola, by the way, on standby in Siaya, Bondo, particularly the home of Raila Amolo Odinga, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party presidential candidate. Although horse trading in politics never ends, so you have somebody exiting at the very final stretch.
You know, politics is about mathematics.
Yeah.
This is where you bring your 1 + 2 and 3 and 4, and then you come with a final result. Yes, we are doing, and we're giving you 360-degree coverage today. It's going to be marathon from today until the end of sometimes next week. So expect the best from us. Horse trading, you call it. But let me ask you, Joy, because it's going to be an interesting day. According to the Deputy President itinerary, he's heading somewhere in Narok County. Suswa. And then, you never know, he might also fly somewhere else before heading to Nyayo. So, last minute dashes to change anything? Is it possible?
I think this is where you call it get out the vote.
Right.
This is not where you're trying to persuade people to vote for you.
It's a done deal.
That one is a done deal. That's why in the morning he did the rallying call to the rest of the country where you'll not be able to make it. This is where you're doing your show of might. You're reminding your guys come out and vote. You're reminding them, you know what, reassuring them that we're in this for the win. And that's why you see Nairobi was very hotly contested in terms of people wanting to have the final rally, because this is where you can do a proper show of might. Because unlike the rest of the country, Nairobi, you've got a high concentration of people. You can summon many people at once in a certain place. So if you want to show a rally that you've got massive support, Nairobi is a good place for show of might rallies. So what the Deputy President is doing today is simply reminding his guys, you know what, here we are, final hula baloo. I can't see you now. That's why he's telling them, see you on the other side Tuesday. Because campaigns end tonight at midnight. So between now and when he gets to Nyayo Stadium, he'll have done maybe 2 or 3 rallies. By the time he leaves Nyayo Stadium and goes to Kirigiti, then from Kirigiti, I am sure he's going to do his drive-by tours.
It's an addiction. So you don't want to stop. I mean, you go about it from here, you feel like it's 2 more hours, I can do something.
I can do,
take a chopper, go.
And we have seen also that the Deputy Rigathi Gachagua has got something from 7 to 9 p.m. on radio. So you can imagine they'll go back to Karen. This guy does his thing on radio. Like you said, these fellows by decided to do just one other quick dash around Nairobi. So today being the final day, you're seeing Martha Karua, you've seen Raila Odinga is getting ready to go Nyayo Stadium. It's the final push. Just telling people, you know what, mimi ni wenu, remember me, come out and vote, because they'll not have a chance to do a personal appeal. So, energy.
It reminds, okay, let me just remind you. You remember when you're about to sit your KCP or KCSE? Then in the next one now we have got English paper 1 or something. Hapo ndio unatafuta, that question was this one and that. Mwakenya ndio hiyo, I don't know where you kept it. That's what's happening to the politicians.
That's quite an admission for you.
Okiora was smart like that, you know.
but just to make it right, you know, for the politicians, there is no time left. Even 5 years ago, 2022 seemed so near that they wanted to make everything so tight and quick and to fix all the loose ends. And boom, here it is.
Absolutely. And actually, the Deputy President from the press conference he had, he went to Mai Mahiu, and I think he's about to conclude that rally in Mai Mahiu and go to Suswa, come to Nyayo Stadium, and finally finish off at Kirigiti in Kiambu County. So as you can see, he doesn't just want to box himself into this final meeting in Nairobi. He wants to do more and probably get out the vote. And you can see supporters of either coalition are coming out in their numbers. You have seen Kasarani, you've seen what is happening at the Nyayo National Stadium, and you know, even supporters also coming out to express solidarity with the party leaders and the coalition leaders. And I'm sure from around 2 p.m. you'll see now political leaders starting to stream in into the stadiums. But as you can tell, it will be a day of vuvuzelas, noise, and then you have to be very patient waiting for your presidential candidate to show up, because sometimes they can even show up at 4 p.m. and you will do nothing. That's just the nature of politics. Let's come back to the preparation of this election and talk about timelines, because before we left off, we were dealing with the judiciary. The timelines provided for, particularly for a presidential petition, and that matter came up in 2017, and I think it even came from no less a person than the Chief Justice, talking about probably we need to rethink the constitutional timelines, because when you say that a dispute should be, or petition should be filed within 7 days after the declaration of results, does the petitioner have enough time to collect enough evidence within the 7 days and file a watertight case before the Supreme Court?
There's never enough time to prepare for a case. There's never enough time. Because even if you're in court, there's still leeway to continue filing documents, but then up to some point, till the pleadings close. That is why I'm saying this, never enough time. Even still at that time, you find that up to the time of even reading the judgment, somebody is saying something has come up. Can we have a... So such things happen. Now, when you are talking of an election, the magnitude of a presidential election in this country, then it even becomes more dire that you have to work around the clock. I think if somebody is thinking of setting up a successful, because you can decide just to put whatever it is that you put, but if you want to put a successful petition in this country, you got to start preparing. That's why you see people complaining, parties complaining about the register, because they know this is what is going to lay ground. You need to start collecting evidence real time, having it in order. I participated in the last 2017 election. It was very interesting. The culmination of the NASA winning that particular case was a lot of toiling and moiling in the back door. I was one of the people who were busy collating and putting things together. And we did that. When we presented them, we had a national office where we were now putting like a warehouse. The materials you saw at the Supreme Court were not the only documents. There were a ton of documents which we had left at the warehouse, which we just took those ones which were very important because of the timelines. And that's where we filed at the last minute. The very last minute, you remember Raila Odinga presenting at night, minutes to the close of the time. So that is how serious it is. And the people collecting were over 40 lawyers. The people across the country, NASA had such a program that it rolled out advocates across the country in every constituency to collect. And they had the appointment who could report to them of any election malpractice. That's why they were very articulate and to convince the court, because it's not very easy to convince the Supreme Court on issues of election, because you have to come with a watertight case. Now, that preparedness is what now made the judges say, this is what these guys have done their bit. You remember, you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that indeed these things were not done well. So the questions you saw being posed is courtesy of the evidence that which was presented, and the judges now are cross-examining and looking at these things, and then the others could not come forth. Then, as a judge, you don't have an option. You really do not have an option, because you've seen clearly the people who are supposed to give you the answers don't have them, or they are jumping around the answers. So there is never enough time. I think it's important, that has been reiterated from time to time, that we need at least some more time. Remember, people are sitting even up to night. We don't need that.
You don't need that. I want to hear your view, Joy, because even if you had, coalition officers as a coalition or a party preparing this, you remember the spectacle of Chiloba and the IEBC bringing a whole lorry of documents at the Supreme Court sometime in the evening, and you always asking yourself, will the 7 judges even have time within these 14 days to peruse through all these documents and make a determination guided by the evidence that is contained in this ton of booklets?
First and foremost, most of the serious contenders in this race, what they have done so far, you'll find they have already dispatched teams to collect evidence. So I know several political parties, many of their agents, the chief county agents, are advocates, such that there are people who can interrogate and internalize the sort of evidence you need to collect in case you need to go to the Supreme Court. So I know for a fact that this time around, the preparation is a lot more robust than before. Then when it comes to the weight of the evidence, is something, there's 2 things at play. One, there's information that might become necessary in the determination of a matter. So you don't want the judges to ask themselves, so was this available? And then somebody says, no, actually it wasn't in our pleadings, we didn't think about it, we can avail it at a later date. No, you want to throw in everything, including the kitchen sink, such that in case it is needed, it is already on file. The problem with that is that, like you said, these are just human beings like you and me, put on their trousers one leg at a time. They can't read a whole lorry full of documents. And so the other function that it works is for the intimidation purposes. I mean, this is one of those things where you're also trying to throw your weight around to show your opponent, even me, I know a thing or two. Sometimes it's unnecessary, but psychologically it deals a blow on your opponents, especially if they're not as prepared as you. So you want to show them, by the way, we are coming and we're coming in a big way. And I think that's what happened in 2017. Jubilee had looked at ODM and thought, you know what, yeah, these guys have come to Supreme before, we've chapped them here, let them come. Hey, they came, and this time round, Jubilee was like, okay, fine. Because if you saw when they went to court, the Supreme Court, the second time after the runoff, the Jubilee lawyers now came buttoned down. But during the first hearing, the lawyers seemed a bit tongue-tied. It was a little bit of a dress down, really. So it serves two purposes. One, you throw in everything in case it is needed. Secondly, it intimidates your opponents. But in terms of also interrogating and the timelines, if I could just chime in a little bit on that. The timelines are necessary because the country needs to have a resolution to that issue so that they can be able to proceed with the swearing in and moving forward. There has been a discussion about maybe we need to change the law, so we follow the Ghana route, where whoever is declared is sworn in, and then within 6 months, the Supreme Court has got an opportunity to hear and make a determination. And within 6 months, if they find that there was a mistake, then you cancel one inauguration and do another one. But in Kenya, we want to finish everything before the inauguration. I don't know why, but that's the path that we chose. So it's one of those things that I think now we can have a conversation about, along with some of these electoral laws, the timelines that even for the political parties to comply with things. I think our timelines are way too tight. And what happens, it leaves a lot of room for errors to mistakes to happen without enough time to correct them. So the question of how much time is sufficient needs to be revisited. Maybe we need to do nomination, again, I fall back to the states because it's one of the most publicly aired elections. Maybe we need to fall back the issue of nominating the presidential candidate like a year in advance. You know, not waiting until last minute. And even knowing the candidates who are running, nominations to be done the year before the election, so that by the time the year of the election is coming, you don't have a situation like we have now where some candidates are being challenged in court while they're already on the ballot. So we need to rethink our timelines. I think our political hygiene has taught us that what we have is not fit for purpose.
Victor, why do I feel like we are better off with the current system than the Ghana one? That Ghana one sounds chaotic.
Kenya election is quite competitive, and I think the two Achilles in studio would actually give us more details on that because it's quite competitive. That's why the way she said, it's a done deal. You know, if there is a court petition, deal with that. If there's swearing in, it's a done deal. Other jurisdictions, I think they're also learning from Kenya. Kenya, we also learn from other jurisdictions. And we are getting better day by day, if you ask me. We are getting better day by day. But Kenyan politics is
actually, when you talk about intimidation, and when you talk about, lawyers and legalists, I don't know whether you remember the de minimis non curata. Those words that run around by Professor B.L.O. Lumumba, only for Orengo to come back at night and say he has a smoking gun, and then the case goes all up in flames. That is the nature of presidential petitions, Victor.
Exactly. Kiore, allow me to engage Joy here briefly in terms of the cost of running this election. It's almost coming to an end. And what is the cost of running an election? Number one, from an aspirant to the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, as a nation, even as media house. Would you please just sum it up on how it looks like to the common mwananchi who doesn't understand pretty well?
Okay, let me start with the media houses because I've been doing this circuit for, I think I started analysis in 2010, if I'm not mistaken, or just before that, 2008. And one of the things I have noticed is that all the media houses wait until the election season to do a facelift. So, like a few
Joy,
months to the...
Joy?
It's not just KBC.
Joy, good afternoon.
It's not just KBC.
Right.
All media houses, you'll find like about 3 months to the elections, all of them move to Studio B. And then Studio A undergoes major renovation at a huge cost. Because everybody wants to put on their best suit, their Sunday best for the election coverage.
Don't know, probably.
For the election, you guys do tell us what that is. I think it's because that's when most people watch TV, and so your advertising revenues are highest. So there must be a science to it. There's something that informs it. But it's the same thing also with political parties.
Right.
That's when offices that were long neglected will receive a coat of paint, will have a staff member, they will have a one little computer, something that an office that has been just gathering dust all those days, you'll find all of a sudden will get life, because that's when they have work to do. The politicians themselves, you've had something called a war chest. You don't go for elective politics if you don't have a war chest. And people will ask you, how much money do you have? Tell them, oh, I have 20 million. They're like, why are you running for MCA? Because they think about, if you're running for big office, you're looking for member of National Assembly, or you're looking for governor, or you're looking for president. $1 billion, if not. You're looking at some serious money. You're looking at, and the expense that we have put in running our elections has been part of the reason why, for example, corruption just doesn't stop. Because people put in an investment, and you put in an investment wanting a return on investment. So once you're in power, you want tenders, you want to do business with government, and milk dry what you have spent, you want to get back and to create the war chest for the next time you go back to run again. So that we need to address, and that's why the Campaign Financing Act was a very important piece of legislation. It needs to be operationalized. It needs to come back. We need to put some sense in how much money we are spending. And that's why there's a proposal to have a cap on election spending. Yes, and it's not important just to have a cap so that you can curb as a means of curbing corruption. It also becomes an access point for those who are not as rich to be able to participate actively in politics. So for like now, we have only 4 presidential candidates. This year, having been in this space for a while, I'll tell you that this campaign is one of the quote-unquote driest I've ever seen. No one has money. Everybody is running on fumes, basically. And so you find something as simple as getting 48,000 signatures should be a breeze. In fact, that should be one sponsor who sends people to go and collect signatures for you. People just didn't have the money to do that this time around. So you find that there are those who perennially run, like Nazlin and others, who this time around didn't even manage to get to any level because it's just prohibitive. So we need to do that also for access, so people are able to realize the Article 48 rights of political participation. But now coming to the country, running our elections is also ridiculously expensive. I mean, our ballot papers have got more security features than our currency.
Talk even about the IBC, the amount of money they were requesting from Parliament. In their billions, almost 46 billion? It is true. Because if you've got a ballot paper that has got 9 security features, including invisible ones that you have to put under UV light. Our transmission papers have QR codes. The KIMS kits have got barcodes. We have to use satellite to transmit results. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But we all do all this because we are very deficient in trust. We have shown that we cheat, lie, steal, and plunder our elections. We don't care about the integrity. So all this is expensive because it's lack of trust, basically. It's not just a lack of trust. We have sabotaged ourselves. We've cheated each other so many times until when you say, let's do that, the guys are like, no, last time that's how we cheated. No, we can't do that because that's how we cheated last time. So the politicians themselves set themselves up in a way to try and checkmate each other with so many laws and provisions because they themselves have corrupted the process. If we got to a place where the trust deficiency was not existing, for example, we'd be able to have Kenyatta University get a tender to print ballot papers for presidential, Nairobi University to print ballot papers for gubernatorial, you give Egerton, as in, we'd be able to do it here in the country on foolscap or on A4 paper with simple, we should be able to go to a chief's office to vote. We wouldn't need to recruit all these IBC officials. We wouldn't need laws, people to be under oath, to be... The trust deficiency in our elections makes it one of the most expensive elections in the world. Kioria, everybody in Kenya has gone under character development. That's why we have got trust deficiency. Kioria, take it away.
Yeah, you would agree. Most of these experiences are shaped by what we see in day-to-day life. But a very important point that Joy raises there about election capping. And Wakili, I've just been wondering, why is it autonomy we need to give to the IEBC? Because every time these proposals come to Parliament has a very serious way of short-circuiting the IEBC whenever election capping is mentioned, including the one that came for this election. And before they, they went, or rather, before they broke from their usual sessions, they decided that this was not going to go through.
It's because they know it touches them, and anything which touches members of parliament are no goes on. That is including salary, That is including per diems. I don't know. I'm sure you know Salaries and Remuneration Commission try to joke around with the money. When they come back, once they have been sworn, I'm sure that is the first thing, first order of business. Can we get back our money? So those are the kind of politicians, because they will be coming from an election reeling their pockets dry.
But again, it depends with the environment where you come from the community, because Mheshimiwa spent the entire savings, and I need to get my money back.
He needs to get his money back. There's no free lunch. There's no free, there's no free lunch, so they have to get it. So going back to the issue of what you've asked, there's no way that is going to pass. If we're going to rely on Parliament, that's not going to happen. I don't see that happening. Maybe we use other means, because when you tell me you want to audit the money I'm spending, then it means you are setting me up for fail, because I won't see my opponent pouring money to defeat me and then I'm sitting back. I will need to do something. So that even actually Mwananchi, the people who propel the politicians to use such money. I was in the village some time back, and I was trying to support a certain politician. Early in the morning, guys come to your home and they ask you, you know, your friend here has lost already. You are like, what has he done? Then the guy is telling me, you know, yesterday he gave people 200 shillings. Do you imagine? I think he's out of the race. It's not serious. So these guys are taking your breakfast and warning you that we have already taken the other side, don't give us 200. We have already taken your breakfast, but you need to give us more. So that is the nature of Kenyans, because Kenyans also are sure that this is the only time they can cash in. This is the only time Mheshimiwa can talk to you. After that, you'll be seeing him salute from the vehicle. All right. So they have to cash in.
Joy, let's talk about election capping, because it appears sometimes like the IEBC brings it late in the day for Parliament to have the time to do monkey business with election capping. Is it possible then for the IEBC probably to bring election capping 3 years to the election? So much so that even when a Parliament tries to play monkey business with it, they have 3 years to settle down, and by the time we're going to an election, we already have a serious law on election capping.
Campaign financing is a problem around the world. And one of the major reasons why politicians don't like for election campaign financing to be capped is because when you have scrutiny on how much money you're spending, then other things arise. So for example, in the proposed laws, if you raise 10 million shillings and you only spend 7, that 3 million that you raised extra, you're supposed to give it back, or to donate it to charity. Who's going to do that?
You have to declare.
Yes, you have to declare it. If you're in a situation where, for example, your campaign financing has been said you cannot raise money beyond a certain time, and then you are unwise in how you spent your money, and it now come crunch time, you're supposed to pay agents, and your coffers are dry. You're going to go into an election without any agents. You need to raise money. If there was a deadline for raising money and you go ahead and raise it, then you fall foul of the law. So what I see is an unwillingness to discipline themselves. Now, there's a certain caliber of politicians that has to sort of, for lack of a better word, either fade away or die out, whichever comes first. Because they look at how they're used to doing things and they cannot imagine doing it otherwise. So in my opinion, it's a matter of IEBC, it's a matter for the subsequent parliaments to just keep sticking at it. One day we did not know that we'd be able to get rid of Section 2A of the previous constitution to be able to allow for multipartyism. Just keeping at it. One day President Moi just capitulated and said, you know what, give people what they want. Even this, the Leadership and Integrity Act is another one, where it's an act that's not even fit for purpose. It's supposed to give life to Chapter 6 of the Constitution, but what it ends up doing is helping people to evade justice. So I think some of those laws are aspirational. We want them to get us to a certain place. This caliber of politicians will not deliver it for us. But as the attrition rate in Parliament is very high, so we keep getting new blood injected, before long, I think we will have enough new people who have got better mindsets, who will be able to actualize two-thirds gender rule, campaign financing discipline, electoral discipline, even the Leadership and Integrity Act will be able to give life to Article 6. So there are some of these things. We passed a constitution that was way ahead of us in terms of mindset and culture, that will eventually get there. As long as it's in our katiba, you just keep trying again until eventually we'll get it right.
Victor, I don't know about the new crop of leaders. There's attrition, yes, there's a higher rate of attrition. The newcomers, sometimes they sound hungrier than the rest, than the part that left.
They become very quickly socialized.
Yeah. I think it's just
like
because of the environment.
Going by what Matiang'i said the other day, that 40% of parliament might be wash guys.
Exactly. So, and you see when Matiang'i speaks
because these are the only people who get money to give.
Yeah, because you know there has to be a certain detachment from your money for you to spend it the way some of these politicians spend it. I mean, you know, you leave the house knowing in the evening you're coming back 3 million shillings poorer. I don't know. The normal mwananchi that I am, I think of that, I just feel fever, and I've not even spent the money. So you can imagine for somebody who actually spends that over 2 months, how much money is that? And they feel nothing. Obviously, the sources now, you must ask yourself, where did this money come from? And is your wife aware that you're spending all that money?
All right.
Your wife must be very far
and I think that's the big question. I think let's deal with one of the issues that have come out in this election, and I think it has been raised by the Deputy President, and he has raised it also today in that presser. The Interior Cabinet Secretary tried to respond to it yesterday, but I don't know how, because the security sector is a critical player in the election, but at what point then do we detach them from actual interference of the election, if there is any?
I heard what Matiang'i was saying and what the DP has been saying. I don't understand where the problem is, because like chiefs, I don't understand how they're going to be used to steal elections, because they're not part of the IBC officials. I think it's that kind of last-minute fever where you just have to cast aspersions to raise the temperatures that, you know, all is not well, that these people are planning to rig or such. But where I've never seen a DC or a D or a commissioner in a polling station, unless they are voting and they go away, and providing security is the police, the work of the police. But meeting chiefs, of course, as Matiang'i was saying, I think I have to give it to him, that he has to ensure that there's security, and who else can he work with other than the chiefs to tell them what is the underlying issues? Because you have to go to the ground. There will be no excuse if there are chaos and then the government is caught unawares. And the best way to keep your ears to the ground is through the chiefs. So it's part of what they're paid for. So having a meeting with them, I don't see how that is a problem, where it turns out that they want to rig now. So I don't think that is a problem. It's just a political statement which is just trying to cast aspersions, so that you try to influence what people are thinking, that this thing is about to be stolen.
I'm sure you have witnessed the old system of President Daniel Moi and what he used to do with the provincial administration when it comes to elections. Could probably this be, you know, just throwing it back to, this used to happen, it could happen again?
Yes, back in the day, I agree, if we were in the Moi era, then that could have been a serious question, because sometimes the DCs were the ones conducting elections. Yes, because the chiefs were the people, the chief returning officer from the ward areas, and they are supposed to, you know, the chiefs used to have so much power, and the police, they were the only people who had police. Even there could not be a police station within the locality, but the chief has. So they were very critical. But since Kenya has moved from that era, we have independent police stations to do independent things. We have the OCS, and the hierarchy has been separated. The chief is administration roles are different from what the OCS does, though they meet in the security meeting to share intel. But now we're bringing in IBC, which is very independent, and that's why we had to insist that it has to be independent. And to have enough cash to recruit its own officials, to train them, and they take them through rigorous training. I think I've seen to other countries around. There is no country where election preparedness takes so much money like Kenya. So somebody to come and allege, I think it's neither here nor there. It's just a political statement.
All right, and Joy, I will give you a moment to ventilate on that matter. But before we do that, let's head over to Western Gishu County, where Timothy Kipnusu is on standby with the latest from Eldoret Town. Kipnusu?
Thank you, my colleague there at the Broadcasting House in Nairobi. Yes, indeed, I'm coming to you live from Uasin Gishu County, the county number 027. This is one of the critical county in this year's general election. Bear in mind, it is the home turf of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance presidential candidate and the current deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, William Samoei Arap Ruto. This county has 6 constituencies, namely Tarbo, Soi, Keses, Kapseret, Ainab Koi, and Moi Ben. And according to the data from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, 506,138 are registered voters, and they will be going to the ballot in the next few days to elect a number of leaders. Remember, this is an increase of 50,000 from the last year's general election, where we saw 450,000 being registered by the IEBC. And for your information, this is one of the agricultural endowed county. Many farmers of many reasons are involving in farming of maize. And of course, the leaders that have been traversing this particular county are keen to ensure that the interests of farmers are taken care of. And just to look at the gubernatorial position, we have very stiff competition from 2 front runners. That is the United Democratic Alliance candidate, that is Jonathan B, famously known as Koti Moja, and the independent candidate, that's Zedekiah Abundo Tich Kiprop, who is famously known as Buzeki, who is making a stab for the second time for the gubernatorial position. He was edged out by Jackson Mandago in the 2017 general election. Jackson Mandago, for your information, is vying for the senatorial position, a position that has received critics from a number of leaders, including leaders allied to deputy president. And Mandago will be seeking to be elected in that position with he is facing stiff competition with a number of leaders in that particular position. Just to make a preview of the senatorial position, we have of course, we have a number of leaders also looking forward to represent that, not senatorial, but rather the woman member to the National Assembly. We have the incumbent Gladys Boss Sholei, who is trying very much to defend her seat in this particular county in the Parliament Woman Representative. And to paint a picture of the level of preparedness in this particular election, I'm joined by the KBC senior reporter James Rono, just to try to understand the feeling here on the ground. Many thanks indeed for joining us, Rono. How do you look at the perspective in this particular county in terms of preparedness, and what is the daunting task for William Ruto, bearing in mind this is the political bedrock and also the stronghold of Ruto as he seeks the presidency?
Thank you, Kipnuso. This area being the stronghold of Dr. William Ruto, he has one of the main challenge is the emergence of independent candidates. If you look at Ainab Koi, we have William Chepkut, who is the incumbent member of parliament, running on as an independent candidate. If you look at the Moi Ben constituency, we have Silas Tirend, who is an incumbent, also running as an independent candidate. Actually, those ones are giving the deputy president a challenge. But all in all, the support for Ruto here is immense. There's also this issue of leaflets being circulated around. Leaders have also been calling for peace, and they're hatching for peace during this coming elections. Yeah.
Thank you so much. There you have it. That is our KBC senior reporter, James Rono, just trying to navigate on the Uasin Gishu County. Remember, we will be covering with him this year's general election. And just talking about Ruto having a daunting task. Bearing in mind, we have 2 independent candidates. That is Silas Tirend from Moi Ben, and of course Swarap Mishram Kiprop from Keses constituency. So it will be very a daunting task for Ruto to ensure that he clinches those particular seats using his party, the United Democratic Alliance. Remember, Ruto represented this particular county, that is Eldoret North, then for 15 years, that is 3 terms. The constituency right now is Tarbo and Soi, and it will be interesting to see how number of leaders who have shown interest to vie for different positions in the 6th constituency will be elected or not using the United Democratic Alliance ticket. We'll be here. From here, we'll be heading to Sugoi, the home turf of William Ruto, to have a feeling in the ground. How are residents talking about this election? Are they confident that IEBC, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, will deliver a credible, fair, transparent election? That is a question that we'll be asking them when we have an interview with them later on. From me, Timothy Kipnusu, I hand you back to Broadcasting House in Nairobi.
Timothy Kipnusu in Uasin Gishu County, Eldoret Town. One interesting thing about Uasin Gishu County and the constituencies thereof is that each and every constituency in Uasin Gishu touches Eldoret Town. So you are in Eldoret Town, you're nearly in every constituency, depending on which end you are. You are still in Eldoret Town. Probably before we ventilate on some of the issues raised there about the independent candidates and what they mean in Uasin Gishu, Joy Medevo, those allegations raised by the Deputy President in regard to the administration side appearing to want to interfere with this election, could they be credible?
Credible, I don't know, because I can't be cross-examined on it. But there have been rumors flying here and there about, for example, issues of ID buying, where you are required to submit your ID for whatever excuse that it is. And that means on election day, if you don't have your ID back, then you're automatically disqualified from voting. So it's a form of voter suppression, so to speak. Then there were other allegations where relief food was being used also for voter suppression. So for you to get relief food, you need to come with your ID. Then once you hand in your ID doesn't come back. So whether they're credible or not, the Ministry of Interior has come back fighting, saying that they are not. But from what we have seen before, there's a time the Deputy President raised concerns about voters being moved in the register, and Chebukati said, no, there's no such thing, only to come back after 2 days and say, actually, yeah, there's such a thing, and we have actually dismissed some of our employees. So for the level of where he is, the Deputy President, where he is, if he comes out with some of this information, I would be hesitant to wish it away. I would rather give it a second look. And it's good that you saw Matiang'i coming out with all his colleagues from the ministry, because that tells me somebody somewhere now sat up and paid attention and said, if this is happening, I want to know. Put the information on my desk right now. And it's also good to, in case there was somebody, like he was saying, some chiefs have been crying, feeling coerced. Now they're under no pressure, because if even the top echelons of the ministry have said, look, we are not involved in this. Now even you, if it was your county commissioner putting pressure to bear, you can tell them, hey, even Matiang'i said that there's no such thing. So I think in a political season, it's a season of half-truths, and sometimes it is true, sometimes...
Before Victor comes in, because I know he wants to ventilate a bit on it, because you mentioned the Deputy President talking about voters being moved. IBC denies, then later comes back and confirms that indeed there were voters that have been moved. But then I'm sitting here wondering, the Deputy President said it is my supporters. The biggest question is, how did the Deputy President figure out it was his supporters?
People have been able to go online or to send text to 70,000, and then if you are a voter in Eldoret and find that your details come back, your ID and name is correct, but your constituency now is someplace in Wajir County. Obviously, you're not from Wajir, so that is obviously a mistake. When it happens with 1 or 2 people, the nature of Kenyans, it's on WhatsApp groups, check your status. Before long, you realize there's a certain pattern emerging. And in this season, I know for a fact, most of the political parties, and I know for UDA for a fact, they have that feedback mechanism through county coordinators and others, where if there are such incidents, flag them so that you can raise them with the IBC at the soonest opportunity. So the fact that he was fast through the post shows that the system that he has in place clearly is working, that if something happens, get to your county coordinator, get the information to Nairobi so we can deal with it. And I'm glad that even yesterday, was it yesterday when Chebukati was doing his interview, he also indicated that they had found out that there was some more discrepancies from their own ranks, and they had taken action against those officers. So I agree with Gesoria that this time around Chebukati seems to be a lot more confident in his role as chairman. He has really stepped up, and it helps to build the confidence in the IEBC. So And if you see it being done in one area, it's not to say that Azimio zones are not affected. Maybe they still hadn't flagged it. And it's good that such people are arrested, because some people could mess up an entire election by doing, I mean, it just takes one fly to spoil the entire pot of soup. So, yeah.
Victor.
Wow. All right. So, okay. The excitement is all over, and people are looking towards the election, you know, just to come and let it go. But, Wakili, let me ask you on that end. Give me, in your own picture there, a day after election. What do you expect? What can you see?
I think what I expect after election is there will be peace. There will be peace. People will be confident that whatever vote or whatever they voted, their vote is safe and it's going to count. There will be, of course, election results streaming in, and we hope that there will be no anomalies which will start spiking the temperatures of Kenyans to cause chaos. But of course, as usual, as already some other people are saying, that just know that be ready that your candidate is going to lose. The best way is to be sure that your candidate is going to lose. So if he wins, you'll be happy. But if he doesn't, just be sure that your one is going to lose. So that I think that's the best mindset you can ever go into an election with. But let the candidates now, of course, after reap whatever it is that they had sown all through. So they shouldn't be shocked, or if they cry, it's now their problem.
Yes.
If I could also jump in on
go
that,
ahead.
what we can expect as well is during election night, the polling stations that did not have too many people, did not have a high turnout, those ones will be the first ones to start uploading. So day one, the first night and day one, usually the results are fluctuating, because you'll find it's the guys with 100 people in the polling station who turned up, 200 guys. So those things come up.
Yes.
But when it comes on the screen, it usually comes in percentages. So it looks like, you know, it's big leaps and bounds. So those first few days we'll see numbers that keep fluctuating and changing. And I think that's why you have people like the analysts who are being told this time round, you can see in real time as they're being uploaded. So you can say, you know what, that's results from only 20 polling stations out of 46,000.
Yeah.
So that is important, because in previous elections, people did not really understand the issue of how the results are coming in. So because they really come in trickles and bursts. But as we progress day one towards the afternoon, the country will have started taking shape, because you're counting 700 votes. There's a reason there are only 700, because the framers of the law wanted it such that it can be cast and counted in the shortest amount of time possible.
Right.
Before, you know, you used to have even 3,000 people in a polling station. Those days where one box would
And
get
another
full.
polling station would have only 150 people.
The days of the total man, where even more boxes the lights would go off, and when you come back, you've got 5 boxes instead of 3. So these days, it's only one box, one polling station, 700 people. So I'm expecting by the end of day one, the country will have taken shape. That grey map that you had earlier will have started popping with some color, because by the time we're getting to the evening of day one, most of the provisional results should have come in.
You also talked about there's that level of boredom. Joy, don't run away from that. Joy Ukwapi, can you come to studio? That will stop.
I know. Look at me here now. I was here at 7 o'clock.
Right?
In the evening, I'll be in another station.
But don't worry.
And that happens because this week we'll be in all the media houses.
Yes.
Come next week, man. My phone is dead. The charge lasts the whole day.
Life
because
back to
nobody's
normal.
calling.
Life back to normal.
Boring, normal.
Okay, that's nature. Kyoria, as you take it up, there's that issue of the opinion polls. Quite interesting to ask the two brilliant brains here. Do they really reflect the real situation on the ground? It has happened before, and arguments here and there, and now we also have it. The DP said that you can also have it an hour if you want. That is political statement, of course, but then does it really reflect the true picture on the ground from that end?
All right, we'll start off with Wakili. Yes. But you know, I listened to Joy earlier, and she talked about who pays the piper calling the shots. But she will elaborate on that. Now, Wakili.
Okay, about opinion polls, you know, it's very interesting. You don't know which one to trust. But me, I tend to go. I think there are around 4 credible ones who have stood the test of time, and they've been around for some time. When you look at what the figures they're giving, they're a bit consistent. Even if there is a gap between whatever it is they are saying or putting out there, the gap isn't by more than 2%. But when you get one saying the opposite of the other, then that should really get you worried. The aspect of polling, coming up with poll statistics is been from, I think, way back in 2007, 2008. I think if you can be able to relate the percentages which were being projected before election and then at the end of the day, there is really some truth to it if you look at it. But there are these other gutter-pressed opinion polls which you shouldn't look at all, because it might give you a very wrong impression, and then you might actually find yourself in the street with a panga saying they're rigged. But that is why it's very important to actually know, where do you get your news, which opinion poll to trust. And then, of course, opinion polls, it's just a percentage of a certain locality for which is voting, so they might not reflect 100% of the biblical truth of what is going to happen. And then there are other circumstances, and then they keep changing because of the circumstances. For example, if a certain you go to a certain region where a certain candidate, presidential candidate, has not campaigned or poured resources there in terms of organizing his voters, he will be trailing. But if he campaigns twice or thrice, the numbers will change. So that should be able to be very consistent in the reflection of the opinion polls, and I think that is what we should be able to look at.
Only that this time we should call them gutter opinion polls, not gutter.
Yes,
Joy,
sure.
For me, I agree with Kasarani to a certain extent in terms of the consistency. In terms of whether they're reflective or not, my observation is different. Because ever since the advent of the new constitution, the 2013 elections and the 2017 elections, for example, all the opinion polls have consistently put Raila Odinga ahead, and then the elections come and then Uhuru wins. Now, again, depending on which side of the divide you sit, it could be like, he actually won all of them and it's Kilibiwo. But for me, if I look at it in terms of, let's look at the facts and figures, all factors holding constant, they've not always been reflective. But you will notice that, like I said earlier, he who pays the piper calls the tunes. Polls are commissioned by somebody. There are those polls that they do of their own volition, but some of them are commissioned by media houses, others are commissioned by private individuals, others are commissioned by the political parties. And sometimes you find that there are other things at play. So, for example, your sample size was too small, or your sample size was mainly urban. So even if you're in counties, you are in the county headquarters, for example, or you are talking to people who are telling you what they think you want to hear. So it may not be what they intend to do, but because they're thinking, this is an ODM zone, I cannot say otherwise, so you go ahead and give, or you say this is a UDA, it's in Eldoret, so you say William, but in your heart you're going to vote for Raila. So that those factors that come into play, that at the end of the day, you find it's not a very accurate barometer. And again, it's not just a Kenyan problem. This is a phenomenon across the globe. And that's why you find many opinion polls are qualified. So they'll tell you this is plus or minus 2%. This is plus or minus this percent.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you'll find, even with the final results, they'll be within a 5 percentage point of whatever predictions were. So what they do help in, though, is the political parties in planning. Because when you see the polls, especially when you find the ones that are broken down into various counties, you can tell, in this county, whatever I've done has tried to assist, so let me put in some more effort in that area.
Yeah.
Or you realize I've put in a lot of resources in this area and it doesn't seem to be paying off. So with limited campaign financing, you decide to put in your effort elsewhere. So it's a very useful tool for political parties to know what to do. This year, again, we were treated to a new phenomenon where there are some political parties whose entire nominations were based on their own, the polls that they commissioned. And they said, you know what, we have seen that Victor is a more popular candidate than Joy. So what we're going to do, rather than wasting money going to ask Kenyans who they think, we have already asked them up and you may attend, let's just give Victor the ticket. And so it saved a lot of money, because if you're conducting nominations, one polling station is 500,000 shillings. And like I said, this is one of those dry campaigns. There wasn't too much money to go around. So I find it was also a means for the parties to sort of manage their costs in the run-up to the election. So polls are useful. Accurate, not always 100%, but they're useful to give you an indication on which direction you should look. Yeah. So that in future, maybe,
Are they useful to the extent of being splashed on billboards?
You know, the splashing on billboards. You remember what I told you earlier about coming with a truckload of articles? And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You want to show your opponents, you know what?
The show of might.
As guys, people have said, we are ahead of you. But I'll tell you something for a fact. There are those ones that are splashed on billboards, especially for the voters to be persuaded either way or not. But I'll tell you, most political parties have commissioned their own honest opinion polls that tells them exactly what their true strengths are. So forget about what you see in the newspapers. To be very honest, what you see in the newspaper is a lot of window dressing, is a lot of, you know, it's the lipstick and the makeup. But if you skin it down, if you find somebody who's in a political party setup and ask them, so what are the real numbers? You may be surprised at what they tell you.
And then I think also just to add, we need some sort of regulations around opinion polls, because
that's true.
Now this is very important. It's becoming part of our lifestyle, especially around the election time. We need to be able to have a very clear analysis. Who is it that we can trust? You can't have people waking up from their bed, taking a laptop, printing some funny things and then spreading them all over to just cause confusion. We need to have some credibility, a bit of law on how these opinion polls should be able to come into place. What are the basic parameters to just weed out these funny things which cause a lot of confusion?
And actually, it has reminded me of one opinion pollster. I think much of what it does, it concentrates so much on the gubernatorial, senatorial, MP positions, where you find this week one candidate is at 60%. 2-3 weeks later, the candidate is at 12%. I don't know what would it
with no explanation to it.
How they explain such drops, unless somebody became a villain
overnight.
In 2 weeks or overnight. Some of these things are unexplainable. Victor.
Right. Somebody said that opinion poll can give you high blood pressure. So stick to your lane and do what you bid. All right, so I'm told that we are coming to the end of this session. We started from 6 a.m. It's almost 1. Oh my God. And you know what? The more time flies, the quicker we come to the election day. So let's just give a cap on what you should be expecting today. Kenya Kwanza are having their last call at the Nyayo National Stadium, which is actually on. They're just waiting for the big, quote-unquote, big boys to arrive, and the Azimio side will be having their last campaign rally at the Nyayo National Stadium. Whichever side of the divide that you support, it's all up to you to make a decision, but remember, it's going to be peaceful. Let me start with you, probably Joy, to give your last comment before I take it to Curious, that tumaliza imanen.
Okay, there's something that I started talking about earlier that I didn't get finished. I thought I didn't finish, about the spoiled votes. And Kenyans need to understand that in 2013, there were, 130,000 spoiled votes. When we came to 2017, this number went up to almost 500,000. Spoiled votes actually say something. It's people who care enough about the country to come and vote. But what they say is that I do not see a candidate whom I can back in this section. And so they choose to spoil their vote. And I'm talking now in particular about the presidential vote. And this goes back now to our political players. We need to learn the growing number of of spoiled votes, the less number of people who are registering to vote is telling us that Kenyans are looking for something different with our politics. So I would urge the political parties, I would urge the politicians to read the writing on the wall. We don't want to come to a situation where Kenyans don't care enough in the process to leave you to do your things be. We need to sanitize our process. The Kenyans who engage now can engage more meaningfully. So don't discount spoiled votes. Those people who come out are saying something, and what they're saying is very important to understand. So that would be my parting shot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Curia?
Yeah, let's give it to Wakili for the parting shot.
I think mine will be, in addition to what you have said, is really to look at the Kenyan in the face and tell them that this is a very critical juncture. We are just hours to the election, make a wise decision in that we have enjoyed a lot of uncomfortable situations in the last 2 or 3 years, whereby we just have to go to the streets to demonstrate that we need to eat. And that's not a very pleasant situation to find yourselves in. Vote for that candidate whom you believe is not going to take you back to the streets and tell you, you know, there's nothing I can do. There's a war in Ukraine, there's something happening somewhere, somebody is busy disturbing me. We don't want those excuses. We want somebody who can actually be able to carry the cross and say, people, let's face it, this is where we are, this is what we can do, this is what we can do. At least somebody who can be able to ensure that you are safe and you can be able to do your things comfortably so that we don't regret.
I think this point is where you say the views expressed here are Gibson enjoyable people to facilitate the conversation.
Absolutely.
All right, Victor, I think I'm not leaving this seat because I will be bringing you the 1 p.m. bulletin that is lunchtime news, so don't go too far, probably from your end, as well as James.
All right. All right, so thank you so much for being a part of this show. We started today at 6 a.m. We'll be doing this, I said, 360 degrees coverage until the end of the election and probably spilling over to part of next week. Thank you so much for staying with us. And of course, Jen, she's disappeared somewhere in the studio. All right, she was also part of us. Thank you so much for watching. Let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Kupata police sherehe kama sikiza tune kwenye simu yako, bonyeza *811 758 hash.
Raya, kwa nini unapigia mtu wakati ya sherehe? It's either two things. Iko emergency ama unamuitia sherehe. Usikuwa unasumbua raia mwingine wakati wa sherehe pana. Wacha watu wagule na wa drive safe. Pia mimi niguche kama ni sherehe. Niguche? Nagucha. Wacha achukue simu pasi. Wewe nani? Wacha uchukue simu ya sherehe bwana.
Kupata police sherehe, bonyeza *811 758 hash. *811 758 hash.
After intensive campaigns, manifesto unveiling, and insightful debates, the home stretch is finally here. KBC has deployed its crew of professional and experienced journalists to every corner of the country, ready to bring you every angle of the 2022 general election, both for TV and radio broadcasts, as well as its digital platforms. We guarantee you a seamless 24-hour credible and detailed up-to-date news from all the 290 constituencies across the 47 counties as Kenya decides.
The 2022 Commonwealth Games will be hosted in Birmingham, United Kingdom from the 28th of July through the 8th of August 2022. Team Kenya is set to make its 17th appearance at the Games. Kenya will contest for medals in several disciplines, among them athletics, boxing, hockey, rugby, weightlifting, wheelchair basketball and para-sports, among others. Watch the Games live on KBC Channel 1. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
Pitu ndo mekwamba unipigie simu niombe msamaha.
Forget I called. Shida gani kukataza kwenda kwa Christine usikiagi? Ona bala sasa.
Kuna mtu anakuanga side yangu kwa hii family.
Ukijana anatumia Jane vibaya sana.
You know, sometimes love can be blinding.
Unaweza ongea na yeye?
Mimi na Jane,
you know, I've always wanted a white wedding.
Are you even sure you love him?
What do you know about marriage na yako tamu? Haiendi vizuri.
Oh, Jane, you really don't know me.
Huyu msichana vile ni bad news. Si unajua familia vizuri ama mwasahau?
Najaribu kumuelewa kakake.
Nini nilikufanya ukoleka na dada? Ulikuwa unampenda?
Bado ninampenda. Sijaiwa cha kupenda babako.
Na unampendea nini?
Usinisumbulie mtoto, niko na mmoja, mimi sina watoto wengine nje.
Wewe ni mtu mzima sasa.
Kwa hivyo leo na kinyangari kati chochote ndio ufurahi, si ndio?
Kwa miaka 11 Minto FM imekuwa pamoja nanyi ikiwapa burudani na kuwaelimisha. Na sasa tunawaalika mashabiki wetu tujumuike pamoja kwa tamasha la Minto Night. Tarehe 6 mwezi Agosti tutakuwa na Minto Night huko Winspark Resort Kisii. Wanamuziki kama vile Kwasa, Embarambamba na wengine watakuwa site kuwaburudisha. Siku ya Jumapili tarehe 7 Agosti, Minto FM itaandaa maombi ya shukrani na kuombea uchaguzi wa amani katika uwanja wa Itiero Primary School kuanzia saa 3 asubuhi. Waimbaji wa nyimbo za dini wakiwemo Evangelist Eric Mwaniki, Molly Kemunto na wengineo watakuwemo. Nyote mwalikwa.
Minto FM yenye karuga yusi. After intensive campaigns, manifesto unveiling, and insightful debates, the home stretch is finally here. KBC has deployed its crew of professional and experienced journalists to every corner of the country, ready to bring you every angle of the 2022 general election, both for TV and radio broadcasts, as well as its digital platforms. We guarantee you a seamless 24-hour credible and detailed up-to-date news from all the 290 constituencies across the 47 counties as Kenya decides.
Welcome to the lunchtime news at the very edition of Kenya Decides. Let's just look at the stories making headlines this afternoon. Busia Deputy Governor Moses Mulomi's running mate Tom Ipomai has distanced himself from supporting the candidature of Kenya Kwanza Busia gubernatorial candidate Sako Bunyasi ahead of Tuesday's polls. Addressing journalists at Azimio House Busia, Ipomai said that his decision to support an ODM candidate was after Mulomi withdrew from the race and decided to support Bunyasi of Kenya Kwanza. The two who were running on Democratic Action Party DAP Kenya ticket went separate ways, with Mulomi supporting Bunyasi, while Ipomai threw his weight behind Azimio flag bearer Dr. Paul Nyongesa Otuoma.
The move by Dr. Moses Mulomi was a personal one, and as I think you know, he probably has for a long time not been focusing on his campaigns but trying to cut a deal with the opponents. And I'm a bit disappointed, completely disappointed, and totally disappointed by his move because he never consulted me. And again, just to reiterate, I was working hard campaigning for the ticket, but my boss never campaigned even once.
Hakika hapa Busia naweza kuhakikishia baba ambaye atakuwa rais wetu wa 5 wa Jamhuri ya Kenya ya kwamba sisi tutampa viti vingi sana katika County Assembly na hata viti vingi katika bunge la kitaifa. Nina hakika kwamba tutampa rais wetu huo uungwaji mkono na itamsaidia wakati tuko katika hizo assemblies.
Well, tonight in the election calendar, today is a very, very big day for the presidential candidates as well as anybody seeking an elective seat today, because it's the final day of campaigns. We're focusing on the 4 presidential candidates. We have the leading contenders, Raila Odinga of Azimio in Kasarani, as well as William Ruto, the deputy president in Nyayo National Stadium. Right about now, we link up with Irene Chuma Udim, who is on standby at the Nyayo National Stadium. Irene, good afternoon. Kindly bring us up to speed with what is happening in Nyayo.
Of the brigade to Dagoretti South and parts of Kiambu, and also hold radio stations. Good afternoon. We are coming to you live from the Nyayo National Stadium. We're expecting the Kenya Kwanza Brigade to hold its final rally ahead of the Tuesday polls, and we're expecting the Deputy President William Ruto to lead the team here at the Nyayo National Stadium. But before he makes his way here, he's expected in a number of parts in the central parts of Kenya. These include Suswa, where is expected to make a Suswa declaration. He will also be in Mahimayu, and parts of the brigade will be holding several interviews in vernacular radio stations, probably because this is the last day. According to the Constitution, the political leaders aspiring to be elected are supposed to conclude their campaigns 2 days to a general election. And this afternoon, this is the mood at the Nyayo National Stadium. The colors here are evidently yellow. These as supporters of the United Democratic Party and its allied parties have made their way here in numbers. And we were able to talk to a number of the supporters and also a lot of legislators who said they're expecting the Deputy President William Ruto to emphasize on the manifesto and also to give them reasons why they should give him the opportunity to be the next president. There is the issue of housing, which they're expecting the Deputy President to address. There's also the issue of garbage collection, especially for the city residents. They said they are tired of the menace, the littering of garbage all over, with poor collection services being offered in the city. They're also talking about housing. They said they're having poor housing situations in the city, and they want this addressed by the Deputy President. They will also be looking forward to have the Deputy President also telling them how he will put to implementation the employment issue, which is affecting 50% of city residents who are eligible or they are with the papers that they are supposed to be getting employment and give livelihoods to the economy in here in the country. But Kyria, this is the mood right now. There is a lot of entertainment this as we wait for the Deputy President to make his way to the Nyayo National Stadium. Another key issue that city residents are looking forward to is the leaders that are accompanying the Deputy President. What do they have on the table? Why should they be elected? Because these are leaders who have been going down the country. As the Deputy President goes around the country, he has gone to 47 counties telling the voters to vote a sex space. And they'll be questioning whether these leaders will be able to deliver on their mandate if given their positions. Back to you, Kyria.
Thank you very much, Irene Mchuma Odimo, and of course Beatrice Gatonye, who were at the Nyayo National Stadium for the Kenya Kwanza final rally at the Nyayo National Stadium. In a bit, we'll be linking up with Richard Munga and Nancy Okware, who are also on standby at the Kasarani Stadium for the Azimio final rally. But right about now, let's head over to Kisumu County. And Kisumu is bursting of life, obviously 2 days ahead of the elections. Simon Achola is on standby with what is happening in Kisumu. Achola?
Well, thank you very much, John Jacob Kioria. Of course, we are coming to you live from Kisumu County, and Kisumu has been uncharacteristically peaceful or quiet, if you may wish, the entire week, of course, as we head into the next general poll that, of course, will be that will be happening on Tuesday. And I can tell you, John Jacob Kioria, this time round, unlike in the past when we've been up and about, this time round has been largely peaceful in Kisumu, with, of course, a key message to various stakeholders who actually involved in the election being that of ensuring that everyone comes out in large numbers and actually participate in this very critical constitutional right that is voting and deciding who will be the next leader in various positions across from the county level all the way to the national level. But Kiro, I can also tell you or report that there's been security meetings after security meetings, especially from the regional bosses. Of course, this is advised by what had happened in previous elections or post previous elections, and of course given also what that advisory from the U.S. government, of course, advising their citizens who are actually residing or working in these parts of the country to be very careful as we go towards election. And there's been security after security meetings just to ensure that everything is actually in the right perspective ahead of the next poll. And as I speak to you right now, I can actually report that there's been heightened security along the Nandi, Kisumu, of course, Kericho, Kisumu County borders. This, of course, is advised by periodic skirmishes between the two communities that reside along the borders. And, of course, the police officer and, of course, government spokesman Cyrus Muguna yesterday addressing the media here in Kisumu, indicating that indeed they have actually done everything possible to ensure that there is a heightened security along those borders. And he was very categorical that the security and enhancement in those particular areas is not meant in any way to indicate that there might be flaring of issues or a breakout of violence in those areas as we head into the next poll. However, he says that the government is just taking precaution to ensure that indeed, as we head into the poll, that indeed things are within the acceptable limits of security, so that then Kenyans along those areas can actually participate in the election come Tuesday. He also says that the police officers that have been deployed in those areas are not meant to intimidate or cajole or even coerce anyone into voting in any certain way, but just to ensure that each and every person who is actually residing in those areas is actually doing whatever they are supposed to do in a very peaceful manner. Other than that, Kioria, we have actually seen here in Kisumu County that politicians are continuing to go around the county and, of course, the region, convincing the locals to actually turn up in large numbers. The clarion call here being that of voting six-piece. However, we have actually talked to a number of locals who are actually saying that they will decide independently, devoid of what party that a candidate is actually vying on. What they say will be important to them is what the said candidate can actually do for them once they are actually elected. And we're actually looking forward to seeing that happen and actually them coming out and participating in this very critical exercise that is actually deciding who will be their next vote. Of course, Kioria, we will also be moving to Bondo not long from now. We understand that Kisian-Bondo Road has actually been having a number of repairs, but also critically or important to the listener and viewer is a fact that there's been a lot of excitement around Bondo. Remember, the Azimio presidential candidate Raila Amolo Odinga comes from Bondo, and the constituency, and of course his home village has we've actually seen heightened excitement and activities in terms of those who are actually expecting that he will be performing much better than he did in the last or the previous polls. So of course we'll be keeping a keen eye on exactly what will be happening in those areas, so that then we can actually brief our listeners and viewers and also those who are actually following us on online platforms, so that then they can actually be abreast with actually what is happening from that region. Kyria, also here in Kisumu County, the other thing that we've actually witnessed in the past has been the issue of mass movement in terms of when we are getting towards the poll. We've seen people actually moving out of this region, especially those who have just come to actually work and do business from this region to their respective or their homes. But this time round, it's a bit calm, and everyone is actually going about their businesses. Everyone is anticipating that come Tuesday, of course, they will be participating in this poll and ensuring that indeed they cast their vote. But key message from every leader and every person who's actually spoken or actually come out and spoken about this issue of election has been the issue of ensuring that they actually come out and participate in this particular poll. No doubt, John Jacob Kioria, we will be on standby to ensure that indeed we give our viewers first-hand information of what will be happening in this region, apart from the fact that, of course, KBC has actually sent reporters across the region in Kisumu and, of course, across the country. Here in Kisumu, my colleague Wycliffe Okech will also be on standby to ensure that indeed those who are actually following us from across the country and want to know what is happening in this region, he will actually be giving them timely updates on what is happening from this region. Back to you, John Jacob Kioria.
Thank you very much, Simon Achola from the Lake City of Kisumu. And obviously, getting a bit of update from that town, the hate and security, but a lot of calm and quiet in Kisumu. You all remember that an advisory by the United States to its personnel warned against traveling to Kisumu. But, Simon Achola reports of calm and quietness in Kisumu town, and unlike other times when you have had movement from that town, there's no movement. It's a peaceful town as it is, except that there's hate and security in every part of the country as well as Kisumu. And Simon Achola is on top of things in Kisumu, later to Bondo in Siaya County, and therefore we have quite a coverage from that end. That is Kisumu as well as Bondo. We also have a team that will be heading to Kakamega to give us, or rather to keep us abreast on what is happening there also. But now, a section of church leaders and security officers in Taita Taveta County held a peace walk in the streets of Voi town, calling on the electorate and the political class to make sure that peace prevails in all parts of the country during the election period. The group later walked to the Mombasa-Nairobi highway, where prayers were held to seek divine intervention for safety due to the recent increase in road accidents.
The caravan was about peace na usalama barabarani. So that was about the prayer that we had in conjunction with the pastors and the members of the public. So we thank. It was about election and peace in our country during this time of election.
Tumechukua nafasi hii kuomba kwa ajili ya usalama wa barabara. Hivi majuzi kumekuwa na ajali mbaya katika barabara zetu, na tunajua ingawa kuna sababu za human error, lakini pia tunajua kuna nguvu za giza, nguvu za mapepo ambazo zinafanya kazi katika barabara zetu. Hivyo tumesimama katika watumishi wa Mungu, kama watumishi wa Mungu, kuweza kuomba kwa ajili ya barabara zetu, wasafiri wetu, hasa wakati wakati wa uchaguzi ambao kutakuwa na pite nyingi sana katika uchaguzi wetu.
Umuhimu ya hii program ya leo ni kuonyesha watu, wachungaji na watu wa polisi tunafanya kazi pamoja, na tena wachungaji wako na kazi kwa jamii yetu kwa jumla, kuhakikisha kuna amani kati yetu.
Sema jambo kwa hii barabara, zungumza jambo kwa hii barabara.
And you remember the Kenya Kwanza deputy presidential candidate Rigathi Gachagua comes from Nyeri, and we have sent a team to Nyeri. We have Kevin Washira on standby from Nyeri, obviously to talk to residents and leaders there about their expectations in this election and the preparedness of the IEBC to conduct a free and fair as well as a credible election. Kevin Washira now joins us live from Nyeri. Kevin?
We are coming to you live from county number 19. This is Nyeri County at the footsteps of Mount Kenya. Now, here in Nyeri County, we have a population of about 790,000 people, and registered voters are about 480,000 people. These are the voters who will be participating in the general election for Tuesday next week. And now here joining me is the returning officer for the Nyeri County, Madam Anastasia Nduku. Now, Madam, what can you tell us about the preparations of the general election for Tuesday?
We have really prepared adequately, especially in terms of materials. We've taken all the materials. All the materials actually arrived from Nairobi sometimes back, and we've managed to transport all of them to the constituencies so that the constituencies can also transport them to the polling station on Monday. So we've really done very well in as far as materials are concerned. So there is no delay. Everything is already done. Yes.
So what time should the Nyeri voter turn up at the polling station to exercise her constitutional duty?
The voters are expected to be at the polling station by 6. That's when the voting starts. Yes, so they can start queuing early enough before they open the stations so that they can be able to vote. Yes.
And what should she or he carry with him or her so that he can participate?
Voters are expected to carry their ID cards. That's the only document that's required if they registered with the ID cards. If they registered with their passport, they're also supposed to carry a passport to enable them vote. Yes.
And how many voters are we looking per polling station?
We have a varied number of voters in every polling station. There are polling stations with 100, others 250, others 700, others 500. But the maximum of voters in every polling station is supposed to be 700. So beyond that, no, we don't have.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe you can tell us briefly about the process. What will be taking through? How will the voter get to participate?
Once a voter arrives at the polling station, they are expected to go to the first desk so that they can be identified using the ID card, or if it's not the ID card, the passport that they used to register. Once they identify that they are found, they are actually identified through biometrics. First, they will produce the ID card, and then they are identified through the biometrics, whereby they put their fingerprints. Their fingerprints are taken, and then they check if they are in the KIMS. If they are not there, then they search in other ways, which is called alphanumeric. They can search using the ID card or ID card number, or even their names. But if they are found, the voter is facilitated to given the ballot paper and facilitated to go and vote. Yes.
And how many ballot papers?
There are, just as usual in Kenya, there are 6 ballots: the presidential, the gubernatorial, the senatorial, women member of National Assembly, member of National Assembly, and count a member of the county assembly. Yes.
There are those voters, maybe because of the duties that they do day to day, their biometrics have been tampered with. Will you be using the manual register?
Yes, the manual register will be available, but not that it will be used for voting, but it will be used to enable just for the cancellation just of the name. But I've just explained that once the biometrics are not found, we have other ways of finding their names. The one I've just mentioned we call alphanumeric. That's the one they use to find their names, either using the ID cards, and then they again, once the names are found, they are referred back now to the biometrics, and they are facilitated to vote. Yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Anastasia.
Okay, thank you.
That was Madam Anastasia Nduku, the returning officer, Nyeri County, explaining to us what voters are expected to go through on Tuesday next week as they participate in the general election. Now, back to your studio.
Thank you, Geshoke Washira. Who is on standby in Nyeri County, and of course speaking to IBC officials there as regards the preparations of this election. Earlier we had taken you to Nyayo Stadium where you saw the events happening in Nyayo Stadium as regards Kenya Kwanza. Now we're headed straight to Kasarani where Nancy Okwara is on standby for the Azimio event. Nancy Okwara, good afternoon.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, John Jacob Kioria. We are coming to you live from the Kasarani Stadium right here in Nairobi County, where the Azimio la Umoja is set to hold their final rally. Today, we do expect that any minute now, the Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate, that is Raila Odinga, and his running mate Martha Karua will be arriving here, and that's when the official program will be kicking off. What has been happening here since morning, very early in the morning at around 7 a.m. is that members of the public have been gaining access to this stadium, and right now as we speak the stadium is almost full with members of the public and supporters of Azimio la Umoja donned in different colors of the various parties that have come together under Azimio la Umoja. We do have over 20 parties that have joined hands to work under the Azimio la Umoja umbrella, and they do hope that at the end of the day they will carry the day in the August 9th general election. Right now, the members of the public that are already here are actually in a celebratory mood, what we would describe as charged crowds as the entertainment segment continues. They are donned in the various colors and regalia just to show their support for Azimio la Umoja, and as they eagerly wait to hear what the presidential candidate Raila Odinga will have to say to them on this last day when the campaigns will be coming to a close officially. Remember that it is a season that kicked off on the 29th of May this year, and campaigns have been ongoing in the country with the various leaders, going to various parts of the country, selling their agenda and their manifesto to the electorate. They have been campaigning for a period of 2 months, and today this final rally under Azimio la Umoja has been dubbed the Firimbi Festival, and we do expect that when the presidential candidate for Azimio la Umoja, that is Raila Odinga, makes his way here, he's going to try and consolidate the numbers just 2 days to the general election. We will continue keeping tabs on what is happening here, and remember that as soon as the candidate arrives, we are going to be giving our viewers live updates from here, right here from Kasarani. My name is Nancy Okwara, and for now I'd like to hand it back to you, John Jacob Kioria at the Broadcasting House.
Thank you, Nancy Okwara. That's what is happening at the Kasarani Stadium, where the Azimio event is happening. That's the final rally for the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party, and then the Kenya Kwanza Coalition also Alliance holding the rally at the Nyayo National Stadium. Let's cross over now to Mombasa, where our reporter Ann Buru is also on standby to give us a feel about the mood in Mombasa 2 days to the election. Ann Buru, good afternoon.
It is indeed a good afternoon to you, to John Jacob Kuria, back at Broadcasting House, and you're coming live to you from the Kenya Medical Training College here at Portrees in Mombasa County. And as you can see behind me, the election preparedness is ongoing. We have the polling clerks that are right now undergoing training for the 2 days. They had the training yesterday and today that is ongoing. And as you all know that Mombasa County has 641,000 voters. And as we wait for the D-Day, that is in less than 3 days, we will be practicing our constitutional right of voting. And right now I will be joined by the county returning officer Swalhia Ibrahim, who's just going to give us an overview of what exactly it is that they have done and they continue to do ahead of the election date on the 9th of August. Karibu sana, Madam Swalhia. You can start by beginning by telling us how prepared you are for the elections on 9th.
Thank you very much. I'm Swalha Ibrahim Yusuf, the county returning officer, Mombasa County. Actually, as we approach the D-Day, that is 9th, we've undertaken trainings for the deputy presiding officers. We are on with the clerks training. This is Changamwe. The clerks are on with their training. In terms of logistics, we've received all our materials. We've also dispatched the materials to every constituency tallying center. Actually, we are prepared and very ready for the election. Mombasa County has 6 constituencies, 30 wards. It has 641,000 registered voters, 1,041 polling stations, and 4 prisons. That makes it 1,045 polling stations.
Earlier this week, you had a meeting with the security authorities. Maybe how far is it with the security this election?
In terms of security, we are ahead of our plans. We are supposed to have 2 security officers in every polling station. We are also supposed to have a good number of security officers at the tallying center. In Mombasa, we have also deployed the GSU, especially in areas that are deemed as hotspots. This is to ensure that there is adequate security so that our people can go out peacefully, vote for their preferred candidates come 9th. So in terms of security, we are well prepared, and the security team has taken good care of the polling stations and the tallying centers and all the areas that are deemed as hotspots within the county.
What do you expect from the voters this time?
You really expect that the voters will come out in large numbers, vote in large numbers for their preferred candidates, so that this is good because they will exercise their democratic right. They will be able to vote for their preferred candidates, and it will be a good gesture to ensure that these voters they are well represented by the people that they want. So I really hope and wish, and I really urge the people of Mombasa County, the registered voters, to come out in large numbers, walk to the polling stations where they registered as as voters with their original IDs or valid passport, that which they used to register as a voter, so that they can vote on 9th this month.
We have different agents from different candidates. Maybe what advice would you give them, and also give the advice to the candidates who are vying for the seats this election?
We have different categories of agents. We have agents at the tallying centers and at the polling stations. We have trained the agents. We have accredited them. They know what they are expected to do at the polling stations, and we have talked to them on how to ensure that the process is successful without any interference. So they are well trained, and we expect them to ensure that the same is done at the polling stations, because before they got accredited, they had to be trained, and once they go to the polling stations, they know what they're expected to do. These agents will be allowed the polling stations with their original identity document, that is the identity card, their original oath of secrecy, their original appointment letter, and the badges that have been given to them by IEBC. Yes.
For the voter to be able to cast their vote, maybe what is expected of them?
The voters who registered in Mombasa County are expected to use their national identity card or valid passport, that which they use to register as voters in their polling stations, so that they can go vote. The polling stations will be opened from 6 a.m. and will be closed at 5 p.m. So we expect the voters to walk to the stations with one of the two documents that they use to register, so that they can be able to vote.
You know that there are changes of the tallying center. Maybe you could tell us about that.
We had 3 tallying centers that were changed. The county tallying center was changed from Bandari to Kenya School of Government, Mombasa. Changamwe constituency tallying center, it was changed from KMTC to St. Mary's Catholic Community Church, and Likoni constituency tallying center was changed from Tongwe Primary to YWCA Likoni. This is because of security reasons. We had to seek the security advisory and ensure that we comply in terms of security, and that's why we had to change these tallying centers.
You've heard it from the horse's mouth. Mombasa County is well prepared. We're ready to cast our vote on the 9th of August. Back to you in studio, John Jacob Curia.
Thank you very much, Ann Buru, our reporter in Mombasa, and will be stationed in Nyali constituency, but also doing rounds across Mombasa County to ensure we have all the facts from Mombasa. And still, keeping tabs at the coast, a section of politicians from Nyali constituency in Mombasa County has urged former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko to embrace sobriety and exercise political decorum during political gatherings. Led by Joshua Ndere, the politicians urged aspirants and their supporters to maintain peace as the campaign, or rather as the campaign period comes to an end today.
Kwa hivyo sisi tuwa emphasize na tuwazidi kuambia wana Mombasa, tuzidi kuwa na amani, tuzidi kupendana. Siasa ni siku moja na kesho yake tuendelee na maisha yetu kama kawaida.
Kitu cha muhimu, tuweke matusi kando, tupige siasa za amani na upendo na uelewano.
And now the Nairobi Azimio chairperson, Tim Wanyonyi, has appealed to residents of Nairobi to throw their weight behind Raila Odinga's presidential bid in the Tuesday presidential election. Wanyonyi, who met Kalenjin community, or the Kalenjin community living in Nairobi, said that Odinga was the best place to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta and accomplish all remaining projects.
In a meeting with members of the community living in Nairobi, the Westlands MP pleaded with the community to vote in the Azimio presidential candidate, saying Odinga values all communities regardless of their political inclination.
Nyinyi ni watu wa ukweli, hamusemangi uongo. Ukitaka tu askari mkalenjini akushike, wewe jaribu bribe yeye. Anakushika haki ya Mungu, anakupeleka ndani.
The community, through its representative led by John Kosgei, promised to back Raila Odinga's candidature.
Kuna Chakopo wa Biblia, kuna wakati alikuwa anapigana na malaika. Hakujua alikuwa anatumia nguvu ya nani? Yake yeye mwenyewe. So tunamaanisha vile umekuja hapa, tunakuja kutumika kwa malaika yeye mwenyewe. Si yule anasaidia, sio yule tunaambiwa.
Meanwhile, Azimio Brigade, led by Nairobi senatorial candidate Edwin Sifuna, took the coalition campaigns to Tasia in Embakasi East, where they urged residents to come out in large numbers to vote for Azimio.
Na tunataka pia kura ipigwe kwa amani, si ndio? Kama wewe ni mtu wa baba, kama wewe ni mtu wa ODM, kama wewe ni mtu wa Azimio, nataka kukutangazia kama katibu mkuu wa chama cha ODM. Baba Raila Amolo Odinga tayari ameshinda hii uchaguzi.
Serikali ya Raila na Karua itararua watu. Itararua ufisadi. Ukiona ufisadi, ukiona umaskini, rarua.
Tuesday tukipiga kura, tafadhali, kuna wale ambao watakuwa wanataka kufanya fujo. Mkiona vijana wakibeba mapanga, nyinyi mubebe kamba, muwafunge mikono, muwapeleke station. Tumeelewana?
The team also donated foodstuffs to the local residents. For Lunchtime News, I'm Daniel Mwendwa.
We're taking our first breather on the lunchtime news. When we come back with more news lined up for you, including linking up with our teams in different areas across the country as we roll out Kenya Decides, our wall-to-wall coverage, 360 degrees of view into this election, which started today, ends until when the IEBC declares the presidential election. Keep watching KBC, because indeed, Kenya is watching.
Intensive campaigns, manifesto unveiling, and insightful debates, the home stretch is finally here. KBC has deployed its crew of professional and experienced journalists to every corner of the country, ready to bring you every angle of the 2022 general election, both for TV and radio broadcasts, as well as its digital platforms. We guarantee you a seamless 24-hour credible and detailed up-to-date news from all the 290 constituencies across the 47 counties as Kenya Decides.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
Welcome back. You're watching the lunchtime news on this edition of Kenya Decides. And in Isiolo, a number of leaders in the county have been summoned by security agencies over claims of hate speech and planning to disrupt the August 9th polls. The leaders accused of being part of a campaign to block a section of Kenyans from exercising their democratic right by creating fear.
A number of leaders in Isiolo County have recorded statements with the DCI of claims of hate speech and a scheme to create fear among voters in the area. Isiolo County Commissioner Geoffrey Omoding warning that all the candidates in the county must commit to peace and they will be accountable for their actions during and after the elections.
Na wakikuja wataandikisha ile political decency and peace charters, so that we bind ourselves for a peaceful election. Na tuko tayari kwa uchaguzi ya tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8. Tumeweka operation order, tumeweka personnel, our equipment ya kulinda zile masanduku za uchaguzi, kulinda uchaguzi huo, na vile vile kulinda wananchi wa Isiolo wale wako ndani ya Isiolo wakati ya uchaguzi, na wale pia wakati uchaguzi inaendelea dhidi ya uchokozi ama wizi ya mifugo ambayo uanga inatendeka wakati ya uchaguzi.
He further dismissed allegations made by one of the candidates over the voter registry of 308 non-members in one of the polling stations that evoked reactions from fellow aspirants. Omoding said that the said polling station was established legally in accordance with IEBC regulations that a polling station should not exceed 700 voters. Grace Baliba for Lunchtime News.
And now sibling rivalry between Vihiga Governor Dr. Wilbur Otichilo and his rival for the Vihiga gubernatorial hopeful, Vihiga gubernatorial seat, George Khaniri, has gone public with incumbent dismissing the current Vihiga senator as a non-performer. Dr. Otichilo, who is defending his seat, claimed Khaniri has nothing to offer to the people of Vihiga, adding that for more than 30 years he has been in both parliaments and in the Senate and nothing was done on the ground. Khaniri, on the other hand, termed Otichilo's claims as kicks of a dying horse and promised to floor him in the Tuesday elections.
Basere, msidanganywe. Kama huwezi fanya chochote kwa miaka 35, utafanya chochote kwa miaka 5? Hakuna, huwezi fanya kazi yote. Kwa hivyo mujue ule Mungu hako tested. Oticho is a tested man. Hata Kenya mzima inajua Oticho is a tested man.
Mimi nimeshikana na Oticho kwa koo. Yule ambaye watu wa Vihiga watakupatia ndio utafanya na yeye. Lakini niko na imani huyu jamaa mimi nitamwangusha asubuhi na mapema.
Let's do some sports now. And Kenya has reclaimed its 3,000 meter steeplechase Commonwealth Games title after Jacqueline Chepkoech clocked 9 minutes and 15 seconds to emerge victorious in Birmingham, United Kingdom. Chepkoech, who was the sole Kenya representative in the finals, defeated Elizabeth Bird of Great Britain and Uganda's Olympic champion Perot Chamtai to the second and third positions, respectively. Our reporter Isaac Lemoka has the details from Birmingham.
Chepkoech, the 2021 Under-20 gold medalist, beat stiff competition from Elizabeth Bird of England and Peruth Chemutai of Uganda and Australian Ami Kashin to break the game's record in a time of 9 minutes, 15.68 seconds.
Niko na furaha sana siku ya leo, nashukuru Mungu. Amenipea nguvu. Sikuwa natarajia na Esawi, lakini kwa upendo ya Mungu alinisaidia sana.
In the men's 400 meters race, Boniface Mwaresa qualified for the finals after clocking 45.85 seconds to finish second in the semis behind Uganda's Adoli Haron.
Please, give me faster than 45.5, but nashukuru Mungu nimefika final. So to go next.
In the women's 400 meters semi-finals, Veronica Mutua couldn't match the speed exhibited by Canada's Powell Mika and Williams Jody of England to finish last in the semis. Likewise, Hezbon Ocheng, Dan Asamba and Mike Mokamba did not meet the qualification mark to forge ahead to the finals of the men's competition.
Pesi ilikuwa ngumu, haikuwa rahisi kwa sababu hata kwa hit yangu nilikuwa na defending champion ya hii tournament, so ilikuwa ni ngumu. Halafu tuna gain experience by the time goes kwa sababu hata Roma haikujengwa na siku moja.
Miami ilikuwa nitakuwa top 3 but at least nimekuwa 4, so acha tuone venye ranking itakuwa.
Haikuwa rahisi. Nimejaribu lakini nimeshukuru tu mahali nimefika. Next time nitafanya vizuri.
The last day of the Athletics Championships here at the 2022 Commonwealth Games will see Kenya hunt for gold in the 1,500 meters men and, of course, 4x100 meters that will take place on Saturday. From Birmingham, United Kingdom, my name is Isaac Lemoka.
You're putting a cap on the lunchtime news. Of course, it's a goodbye for me. We'll see you tomorrow. Right about now, let me take you back to Birmingham for the 3,000 meters steeplechase final. That event is ongoing.
Went out in his heats in Eugene. He's an 8:20 performer this year. John Gay of Canada, 15th in Tokyo last year. Graham Fell, the last non-Kenyan athlete to take a medal in the Commonwealth Games, apart from Kenya. That was in '86. There is Sable, Avinash Sable, 11th in the World Championships in Eugene. Good athlete, 8:12 this year. Amos Serem, the reigning World Under-20 champion in Nairobi last year, took gold. He's an 8:09 performer. He's still only 19. Jonathan Hopkins, 6th in the Commonwealth Games for Wales. Back in 2018, 8:31 this year, close to his lifetime best. There's Zach Seddon, European Under-23 champion back in 2013. Went out in his heats in Tokyo, but he was 5th in the European Championships in 2018. And Ben Buckingham completes the lineup for Australia. The 30-year-old went out in his heats in Eugene, but he has run 8:19 this year. That's a personal best. World class used to be considered anything close to 8:20, anything under 8:20. Now times have moved on, and with plenty of athletes having broken the 8-minute barrier. I say plenty of athletes. 13 men in history have broken 8 minutes. 9 of them are Kenyan, 10 of them Kenyan born.